Hi, guys. My name is Michael Galloway, and today we are going to be doing a DTT training. We're going to talk about what DTT is and how it looks in the classroom. You're getting a link to the video of this presentation, but I'll add the link to the slideshow so that you can refer to the slideshow at any point. That'll be in the description box. All right, so what is DTT? Discrete trial training, also called discrete trial teaching or discrete trial instruction. DTI is an instructional strategy which consists of a succession of discrete trials on different programs. A discrete trial is a small unit of instruction, usually lasting only 5 to 20 seconds, implemented by a teacher who works one-to-one with a child in a distraction-free setting. DTT is research-based and aligns with the principles of applied behavior analysis. It is used to simplify and individualize instruction, and it is proven to be effective for addressing academic, motor communication, social, and self-help skill deficits. So it is advantageous for students with autism and other cognitive disabilities. You do need some materials for it, your DTT sessions. So it's important to get these ready beforehand, and they will be determined from the student's IEP. You'll need the program materials such as manipulatives, flashcards, picture cards, writing utensils, anything you need to deliver the instruction. You'll need a data sheet. This can be hard copies or digital, and we'll go over the data sheets more here in a minute. You'll need your reinforcers. These can be identified through a reinforcer assessment and can include preferred activities, tangibles, praise, and or edibles. And any applicable visual supports such as timers, first thin boards, choice boards, anything like that. These are the steps for DTT. It is a 3-term contingency, but before you start, you do need to get the learner's attention. If you try to begin without having gained the learner's attention, your data is going to be skewed. Once you have the learner's attention, you're going to provide the antecedent. That is the verbal directive you give the student. Most of your antecedents are going to be listed on your data sheet. There are some objectives that will not have a consistent antecedent, such as following a one-step direction. You're not going to give the same verbal directive each time for that, but most antecedents will be listed on the data sheet. As soon as you give the antecedent, follow it immediately with the prompt that is also provided on the data sheet. Once you've delivered the antecedent and the prompt, you observe the behavior, and this is the student's response. So record whether or not the student made a correct response using the given prompt level and antecedent. And as you're doing this, consider the amount of time that the student needs to appropriately respond. So as I said earlier, this is usually between 5 and 20 seconds. If you're doing something like a sight word or a letter sound, that's probably going to be 3 to 5 seconds. If the student doesn't respond in that appropriate time period, you give them the correction and move on. If the student, or if it's something that requires a little more time, such as counting or adding, just consider the amount of time needed for the student to appropriately respond. Don't wait around too long for the student to respond, or you're going to end up likely losing a lot of time. And then after the student's behavior, deliver the consequence. So you're going to reinforce correct responses and correct incorrect responses or no response, and record whether or not the student did make the correct response. Some thoughts about reinforcers. I always try to limit and fade food reinforcers when possible. One, because food costs money and it's not something that can be reused over and over, but also we want to work on building the student's intrinsic motivation over those extrinsic motivations as much as possible. So when the student is first starting DTT, or if it's their first time, the first few times working with you in particular, you're likely going to have to use a lot of food reinforcers, but I do try to fade those out as quickly as possible and rely more on preferred activities, preferred items, and lots of social praise. Um, and when you're giving those consequences, that goes back to at first, you may be giving a reinforcer after every correct response, and you can fade that. So it's by the end, you may be doing it after every 5 responses, after every 10 responses. It's best once the student has started to differentiate. So you may give it after 3 responses at one time, and then 5 responses, and then 2 responses. So you can switch it up in using different values of reinforcers. So using social praise one time, and then, or social praise, social praise, social praise, and then giving a preferred item. And the last note on consequences is that punishment procedures are not recommended for use in DTT. This is the prompt hierarchy. If you need to see what these prompts look like, you can click that link under the video model. I'm not going to play it now, but that is there as a reference if you need it. But I'll go over what these prompts are, starting with the most restrictive prompting, which is full physical or echoic. A full physical prompt is when the instructor guides the learner to a correct response from the start of the trial to the conclusion. An echoic prompt is when the instructor says a word or a phrase in full for the learner to repeat. A partial physical prompt, the instructor provides some physical guidance towards the correct response, usually at the beginning of the trial, but allows the learner to make the final response themselves. In partial echoic, the instructor says part of a word or a phrase to help the learner start or complete the word or phrase. It can be used at the beginning, middle, or end of the word or phrase, depending on the learner's needs, but like partial physical, it's most often used at the beginning of the word or phrase. And a model prompt, a model of the correct response is provided for the learner to observe. The model can be done by the instructor, a video, or other means. The learner then ideally copies the model. In a gestural prompt, the instructor points to a correct response. The learner then responds, ideally by following the gesture. In a verbal prompt, a verbal cue which will help the learner to respond correctly. A visual prompt, the instructor presents visual instructions such as words or pictures to help them respond to an instruction correctly. And an independent prompt, of course, is when no prompting is provided. The learner must respond without help from the instructor. And a word on prompting. Not every prompt is going to be applicable for every objective. So if you're having a student verbally say sight words, you're probably going to use echoic, partial echoic, maybe visual prompting. But you're not going to do the full physical, modeling, gestural. Those are probably not going to be as appropriate for those objectives. So just consider the type of prompting that you will be able to use given the objective that you're working on. This is a list of those definitions if you ever need to refer to them. All right, so we're going to watch a video to see what DTT looks like. There are some considerations that we'll dive into within the video. All right, guys, we're about to start some DTT. So I've got some materials ready. I've got my data sheet here that's ready to go. I've got our objectives from our the IEP goals. We have different prompt levels. So we have some partial echoic, independent, full physical and full echoic, some model prompting and some gestural prompting, and the antecedent is the instruction I'll deliver right before we're looking for that behavior. We have a place to take data, and then at the end we'll add our total and the date we finished. It's also good to have your student's name at the top of the data sheet, and at the end we'll go over some considerations. We have some choice reinforcers here. When you're starting DTT, you're going to want to give your students a, you don't want to overwhelm them with reinforcing options, but you do want to pick 2 or 3 that you know are going to be really reinforcing to the student that you're working with. As that student gets more used to DTT, you can relax on the, you want to fade away the food reinforcers as fast as you can, and you can also fade away some of the more tangible reinforcers and focus more on praise reinforcing, but that happens after the student has gotten used to some DTT. So I've got the reinforcers, I've got my DTT materials, and my data sheet. So let's get into this and see what it looks like. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the objective, I'm going to look at the prompt level, I'm going to deliver the antecedent and deliver the prompt immediately. All right, so what word is this? You.
You.
Good job. So that was a correct response. I put a plus on there for a correct response, and I deliver some verbal praise. So that is a reward. There's different levels of reinforcement you can do. You can go ahead and give the choice reinforcer right away. I usually do a few directives first and then give the choice reinforcer. I did forget. Let me ask, what are we working for right now? You want to work for the puppy or an apple? All right, so this is something you can choose to do sometimes. You probably want to at first start offering the choice reinforcer, but as you get to know your students better, and again, as they're starting to get more used to DTT, you could just bring the reinforcers that you know are strong reinforcers for that student. And then we're going to just go through these really fast. We want to change it up, so we're not just going to go through the one sight word all the trials and then go to the next one. So we switch it up and we try to move as fast as we can. So what's 3 plus 1? Ready, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. What does 3 plus 1 equal?
4.
4, good job. Here you go. All right, so that was the correct response. So I'm going to go ahead and put that as a plus. My turn. What word is that?
No. Go.
That's go. There you go. Good job. So that was a self-correction. Before I could provide a corrective response, she self-corrected. So even though she got it wrong first, that is still a plus because I did not get the opportunity to provide feedback. So if she did not self-correct, that one would have been a minus, but since she did before I provided correction, that is a plus. All right, do this. Nice job, and that is a model prompt. Show me your name. Good job. Here you go. And as you get used to this, you can do it a little bit faster and faster. At first, you may want to take your data after each trial, but as you get used to it, you may be able to do 3 or 4 trials before you have to mark your data. There are some considerations when doing DTT. So the first is what happens if the behavior occurs before the prompt. So, my turn. Thank you. So this usually happens with flashcards. If you're giving the student a flashcard before you can even deliver the prompt, they may go ahead and say what you want. So she said help. That is the correct response. So I would put that as a plus, even though I didn't get to deliver the response yet. If she has a partial court prompt and she got that wrong,
No.
before I could deliver the response, I'm going to go ahead and deliver the prompt. Help. There you go. And since she got it right after I delivered the correct prompt level, then that's a plus. All right, so we talked about self-correction. You will also sometimes see refusal or non-compliance, and this is how you can get a minus during full physical prompting. So if we go back to this, showing what 5 plus 2 is, all right, and the student's very obviously fighting and non-complying. I'm not going to get into a power struggle with the student. I'm going to mark that as a minus, and then we're going to try to get some behavior momentum going. So I'm going to start with some things that, some master goals that I know that the student can do. So we'll do some easy tasks. Touch your nose. All right, and when we're doing behavior momentum, we're going to give high reinforcement. So every time we're going to do, great job. Here's your toy. And then we're going to build up a little bit. My turn. What word is this? Go.
Go.
Good job. All right, and now we've got some behavior momentum going. I'm going to try that again. Let's see what 5 plus 2 equals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What does 5 plus 2 equal? 7. Good job. And that's how we do behavior momentum. All right. Thanks so much to the team for helping me make this video. Ms. Tolbert as our student, Ms. Peden is our camera lady, and I'm Mr. Galloway. Thank you so much. All right, this is what the data sheet looks like. You see we have the objectives over here. These are based on the student's IEP goals. We have the prompt levels as well as the antecedents. You'll see on this particular data sheet that I have 2 checks of data for sight words. This is because for this student, maybe their sight word goal is to read 250 sight words. I'm not going to take data for 250 sight words every day, but I'm going to focus on a few that we're going to try to master. And so I'm taking data on the ones I want to master, but I do also need some data on the goal. So maybe once a week, I'm going to do the total sight words just so I can continue to track data and get the total sight words. So that's why I have 2 checks of data for the sight words on that. This is where we collect the data. You put a plus or a minus here. So in this one, you have a plus, or you have 5 boxes for data, 5 boxes for data, 5 boxes for data here. There are some times where you might need to label what the data is. So the objective for this student for identifying personal information said that they needed to identify their name, birthday, address, phone number, and their parents' names. So then I would just put a plus or minus under each of those, whether they got it right or wrong. And then you have where you'll count your total, and we count that as a percentage, and then the date you collected that data. You need to input your data daily. I make my data sheets in Google not slides, in Google Sheets. So in sheet 1, I have the sheet that I'm using with the student, and then in sheet 2, I have the sheet where I've got all the data in. I'm putting in data every day. You need to analyze your data regularly. It's best practice to do it daily, but you need to do it at least once a week. And when you're determining when to change prompt levels, you can consider the mastery criteria from that's listed in the student's IEP goals. That's not always the best practice though, because I've seen IEP goals that says the student will get 60% in 3 consecutive trials or 3 consecutive data collection sessions. And if that's the instance, you don't really want to move from, say, partial echoic prompting to independent prompting if they're only at 60%. So that's just something to take into consideration. What I usually do is either 80% in 3 out of 4 days or 3 out of 5 days, depending on the student. I will decrease the prompt level, or if they're at below 50% for 3 out of 4 days or 3 out of 5 days, then I will increase the prompt level. And you see here, I've put in the comments what the prompt level is, so I can quickly go back and refer to the prompt level. And when the student is at independent, I will turn the numbers red so that I can easily see without even having to go into the comments where the student is doing it independently. All right, and that is it. I hope y'all learned something from this, and we'll be seeing y'all soon. Thank you so much.